In 2018, white people committed violent crimes against black people almost 60,000 times. In the same year, black people committed violent crimes against black people almost 400,000 times. But y'all just want to talk about this one, not this one. I guess black lives don't really matter unless they're injured or killed by whites, and then the media tells you to be mad about it.
Now again, the mental judo that's happening here of the media telling us to be mad about something. You know, it's important to know the what aboutism that's happening, the distractions that's happening. She goes on to talk about white on black crime or so on and so forth. What is that? White on black crime. We're not talking about white on black crime. We're discussing systematic racism within the police force. And if you noticed with the graphic that I put up, that number 6 of leading causes of death for African Americans is the use of force by police. That's what we're trying to discuss, not this distraction of white versus black, of race. Again, they're using race to divide. This ain't about race. It's about power. It's about abuse of power. It's about bigots who would protect this abuse of power because it benefits them, the greedy few.
Have you ever heard of the Barbary slave trade? That's the one where for hundreds of years, millions of white Europeans were kidnapped and enslaved in North Africa. Kind of weird that we never hear talk about that example of slavery, right?
Right. It's kind of weird. I don't know. It may be weird if you didn't have history class or something. I was taught about that. White people are quick to point out that there was other slavery happening. I mean, who is she talking to? But again, she is pretending to be talking to the black community, but who she's actually talking to is the white community or white culture. See, this is the bullshit that's happening here, is that again, she's using race to divide. And now play up this, oh, we're victims too here. No, nobody is saying that you're not a victim, because we're not talking about it in a sense of race. We're talking about it from a sense of power. Abuse of power, bitch.
How about the police killings of Kelly Thomas and Duncan Lemp? Haven't heard of them? I'm not surprised.
After considering all of the law and all of the evidence in this case, I'm charging Officer Manuel Ramos with second-degree murder, 1 felony count of second-degree murder. And I'm also charging Officer Ramos with 1 felony count of involuntary manslaughter. If convicted, he faces a maximum sentence of 15 years to life in state prison. Corporal J. Cicinelli is charged with 1 felony count of involuntary manslaughter and 1 felony count of the use of excessive force. If convicted, he faces a maximum sentence of 4 years in state prison.
Do you see what they did to that man's face? I made the graphic small on purpose because it's pretty gruesome. Now, a lot of people may not have heard of this because it happened back in 2012. And 2 officers were charged. So this is not necessarily anything that have to do with what's happening today or the issue of it being ignored. And now that's why people are so upset, because we've constantly pointed out things like that, and no one has been charged or even disciplined. But here she is again using race to distract from the issues of today. This is the only reason why she even brought up Kelly Thomas. I knew about Kelly Thomas because it happened right here in California. But for her, it's to use this man's death as an opportunity to justify her bigotry. And as for Duncan Lemp, we don't know why we haven't heard of him. Most likely it's because 3 officers broke into his house and murdered him. There's corruption in police departments. That may be why we have not heard of it, because there's no evidence or information due to maybe stonewalling or this corruption. What we do know is that it sounds eerily familiar like Breonna Taylor.
We hear from Breonna Taylor's mother, who wants charges brought against the police officers who killed her daughter. She tells us that Taylor wanted to be a neonatal nurse, planned to marry her longtime boyfriend, and that the couple had even picked out a baby name before her death.
The 26-year-old from Louisville, Kentucky, was killed after 3 white police officers secured a no-knock search warrant, allowing them to enter her home without warning. The attorney representing Palmer in a wrongful death lawsuit against the police officers says there was a loud banging, then the door flew off the hinges.
Taylor was asleep alongside her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, who was up watching a movie. Thinking that it was a break-in, Walker fired his licensed handgun, hitting one of the officers in the thigh. The police fired back more than 20 shots, hitting Taylor with at least 8 of them. The officers have yet to be charged for the incident, and Palmer hopes that will change. She also wants the use of no-knock warrants to be restricted and for all officers to wear required body cameras.
Yeah, Doug, we sent an email to LMPD yesterday asking for them to address what looks like errors in the report. Today, I sent a second note, and I know multiple people in the office opened my email, but none of them responded. Tonight, the Taylor family attorney is calling that report an insult. This is the 4-page incident report. 4 pages filled with basic details and numerous boxes left blank. After we saw it, we called Sam Aguiar, the Taylor family attorney.
It's a tremendous slap in the face to release something like this after 3 months that is so blatantly inaccurate. It's insulting.
The report details the time and place of the shooting. It identifies Breonna Taylor as a 26-year-old black female. We see the names of the officers, and then we see what appears to be inaccuracies, like this box where an officer checked no under forced entry, and this one identifying injuries. An officer wrote none. We know Breonna Taylor was shot 8 times and died on her apartment floor.
When you read a document like this incident report and you see blatant misrepresentations that even suggest that Breonna Taylor wasn't hurt, that's injustice, that's an insult, and that's just LMPD's way of doing things their own way. And it needs to stop, and it needs to stop now.
The Taylor family attorney calls it injustice. Mayor Greg Fisher says it's unacceptable, tweeting, quote, "It's issues like this that erode public confidence in LMPD's ability to do its job. And I'm sorry for the additional pain to the Taylor family and our community."
Again, the corruption of police departments. This is what we're talking about. They are abusing their power.
Did you also know that the CIA has been conducting psychological operations on us for decades using our media? Did you know that black on white crime is over 9 times higher than white on black crime? I bet you didn't.
Dylan Roof posted a manifesto on the web a few months before his murderous rampage.
But more importantly, this prompted me to type in the words black on white crime into Google, and I have never been the same since that day. The first website I came to was the Council of Conservative Citizens. There were pages upon pages of these brutal black on white murders. I was in disbelief. At this moment, I realized that something was very wrong. How could the news media be blowing up the Trayvon Martin case while hundreds of these black on white murders got ignored?
Had Roof first come to another website, history might have been different. He might have learned the truth instead of the racist lies pushed by the Council of Conservative Citizens. And the truth is that the vast majority of white people who are murdered are killed by other white people, not by black people as the Council's website suggests. The Council's site wasn't the only one peddling misleading statistics when Roof Googled black on white crime. In fact, the amount of interest in 2013 in this topic, stoked by white supremacist propagandizing, actually created a cyber cascade on this subject, linking Roof to these proliferating hate materials.
Because it doesn't fit their agenda to make you think that black and brown people are the perpetual victim and that white people are the privileged, power-hungry murderers.
She, uses a dog whistle of black on white crime. And she mentions that, again, out of the blue, as if it has anything to do with police brutality. But she doesn't mention it for any reason but exactly what Dylan Ruth did, was for white people to go, what is that about black on white crime? And then Google it. That's the psychological warfare that's going on here. And in that psychological warfare, did you notice that she sarcastically implied that black and brown people aren't victims, aren't perpetual victims is what she said, meaning aren't the victims of systematic racism. And then she spins it to say that white people aren't privileged, power-hungry murderers. Well, slave trade, colonization, that damn sure paints white culture as murderous. Greedy, that's kind of easy to see. And privileged, well,